Welcome to the first episode of Tony, Tennis, and Taxes. I'm Tony. I love tennis and I love taxes. So we're going to spend the next 20 minutes talking about tennis and taxes. All right. I'm excited to have as my first guest, Annie Tichenor. I thought it was Annie Wolford, but it's Annie Tichenor. And we have two things in common, Annie and I. One, we have a common friend, Brad Wolf, who was kind enough to introduce us. And the second thing is we're both connected to St. Mary's College. I understand from Brad that you went to Division I St. Mary's College and played tennis there.
Yes.
Tell me more about that.
Well, it was one of the most exciting times of my life. I played tennis there starting in 1999. I'm going pretty far back in my memories. I signed with St. Mary's. I went on scholarship. You can imagine the pressure of that.
So what got you into pickleball?
Finding out that it exists got me into pickleball.
That's all it took.
I had no idea. An old high school tennis rival introduced me to pickleball on 4th of July. So I really thought when she described it to me that it was kind of like ping pong or, a sport where I didn't need to change out of my flip-flops, so I wore a sundress and I didn't even put a ponytail in.
Yeah, compared to tennis, such a short court, like, oh, I can lunge and cover the court.
And then about 3 hours into playing with her, I said, I don't think I want dinner tonight. I want to keep playing.
Wow. So you were hooked immediately.
I was immediately addicted.
Wait, so this is July when? How long ago?
Almost a year and a half ago.
A year and a half ago. So you've been into pickleball full on. Addict into pickleball for a year and a half.
Absolutely.
So tell me, based on what I heard from Brad, he said that you're playing opens?
Yes.
All right, so is an open money, it's like tennis, is it a money tournament?
Yes.
So you've gone from probably the small nothing level and you rose all the way to the money level. So equated for a tennis guy, when you go from NTRPs, you just do the sort of the know nothing tournaments where it's not money, you just play. And then you go to the opens and they've got money. And then you've got the challenger circuit. And then you've got the ATP WTA. All right. So where are you now in that sort of comparable level? Are you a pro because you're playing for money tournaments?
I'm not comfortable calling myself a pro.
You're playing for money tournaments.
And yet, in talking to people who know me well, I tell them I want to stay under the radar as long as possible. I want to preserve as much anonymity as possible for as long as possible.
Why?
Because there's so much pressure. And I know what it feels like to be under pressure. And I have only been playing for a year and a half. And frankly, I don't know how good I am. Pickleball is the Wild West right now. It is chaotic and beautiful and brilliant. And it's nearly impossible to know how good you are until you upset someone who is reputably good.
Okay, so you're trying to calibrate against that standard. So have you played somebody at a standard where you say, okay, I know that person's quality? Have you played against someone you calibrate and say, oh, okay, I'm not there quite yet, or I was close enough where I'm at that level?
In training, I've played with people who I esteem as better than me.
Okay.
And who have played in professional tournaments and won matches.
Okay.
Saying matches, we call them games in pickleball, but I still call them matches. Sometimes I even call my paddle a racket sometimes.
Can't leave the tennis girl behind.
No. So I do know how I measure up with those training partners. I do know that they've ushered me with exuberant encouragement to play pro.
Okay.
And I do know that I'm going to know a lot more by next weekend when I play in a large, exciting professional event.
Okay, next weekend.
Yes.
Where?
In Newport.
Rhode Island or Southern California?
No, Southern California.
And what, tell me the event. What is it? Is it an open? Is it what type of event is it?
It's a PPA.
Uh-huh.
There are two competing professional pickleball associations,
Uh-huh.
PPA and APP.
Okay.
And so this is a PPA event. It's called Takea,
Uh-huh.
Takeya.
Okay. The key.
And when I know that when I looked at the bracket a few months ago, my partner and I were the only women who aren't famous in the bracket.
Mm.
So,
So where does the draw start? Is it a draw of 64, 128? Where does it start?
I don't actually know. I won't look at I don't want to look. I'm
Oh,
not going to look. I
oh,
don't want to know who we're playing until we get
uh-huh.
on the court.
Uh-huh. So
I
just focus.
I don't even want to think, I don't even want to look at their faces. I want to think of them as a pair of feet that I'm going to aim at, and we have
Oh
a
boy.
ball that we're going to share. So I don't look at those things. So
Okay.
yeah.
Wow. All right.
And
So was it entry fee?
yes.
Okay. So what level do you have to start winning to get in the money in that tournament? Is it per
Gosh,
round? Where are
good.
you in the money? Yeah.
That's a great question. I
It
bet you
is,
have
it
to
is a
win.
money event, right?
Yeah, I bet you have to win, but I'm not sure. I'm
So
flying
you're
by
not
the
thinking
seat of my
about the
pants.
draw. You're not thinking about the money. You're just there to
No.
compete. Okay.
Oh yeah, I'm not attracted to playing pickleball in order to make money at all. If I wanted to make money, I wouldn't. I don't think I'd pursue pickleball.
But you're a pro. You're
I'm
a
not.
pro. Wait,
I'm not.
so let me ask you a question around that, my statement. You're a pro. Do you have a sponsor or sponsors yet?
No.
But is that something that you think about?
It's interesting how many people have asked me that in the last 2 weeks. All of my training partners are asking me that,
Uh-huh.
many of whom are sponsored. The difference between them and me is not our talent level or how many medals we've won.
Uh-huh.
It's that they've asked for the sponsorship, and I have not.
And why not?
I think it is connected to wanting to be under the radar as long as possible. I don't.
Okay.
Mhm.
So let me jump then to a sort of statement in question. When you say as long as possible, that means that once you start seeing success against people you view as really the name competitors,
Yes,
then your mind and you're ready to go, getting out of the shadows.
perhaps. Yeah, I think I'll still hope to duck out.
Or you're
I
just
don't.
waiting. You're just waiting to pounce. I can
That is true. I feel that way, but I've explored the way that the human ego works. I'd like to resist
Mm,
ego. I'd like to resist it having the
a
wheel
hold
of
on.
my vehicle.
Yeah.
I don't, and I know that when I connect to the talent that I believe I have, such that I'm enjoying attention
Hmm.
through it,
Hmm.
then I have engaged with a different relationship with my ego. And
Okay.
that actually, I believe, takes a lot of my power away.
Okay. Got it. Got it.
Okay.
Yeah. No, everyone I know from junior tournaments all the way through college, everyone has a different way to manage the stress,
That, yeah.
whether it's pounding your chest or being really subdued. I saw every personality. One of the best players that I saw on my son's college team, you couldn't tell whether he was at a Sunday mass or watching TV or playing a
Wow.
competitive match. His level was here all the time.
Wow.
Point one or match point, it was always here, and it
That's
bothered the
incredible.
heck out of the opponent.
Wow.
Um, and he was great at it. There was
It,
none of
there
this,
was no volatility.
nothing.
Wow. It's
And
interesting to watch the footage. The last 3 tournaments I've played, my partner and I have won gold, and they've all been PPA or APP.
wow.
And so that's part of why I've decided it's time to step up into the pro level, because we entered each of those 3 tournaments,
Uh-huh.
very big tournaments, at the 5-0 level, which is the level below pro. There's nothing between. And
Wow.
so watching the footage of me playing though, I sound very aggressive. I sound expressive. I'm vocal. So I'm not actually, I don't show up as your son showed up. I'm not quiet. I'm not as I might say that I'd like to be. But when I see the footage, I see my fear and me matching my fear with bravery.
Wow.
I don't see confidence. I see fear.
But the way you amp up is the
Yes.
way you conquer that.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. So you know the way you need to play to get you to the best that you can be on the court.
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so.
So when gold ball, that status, gold ball means what? And I'm very new to pickleball.
Oh,
You
I
said
think
you
I
won
said
gold
gold medal.
medal.
Medal, and you heard medal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
we won.
and was that a money tournament as well?
Those were, but we were entered at the 5-0 level. So that's a skill-based level that's amateur. But that's the highest level of amateur play. So if you win several times at that level, it's suggested that elevation is next.
And from that event to the Newport event, now the Newport event is a professional level, right?
Yes, they have skill-based amateur levels available there, but my partner and I are entered at the pro level.
Okay. So now we're going to start sliding into the tax aspect.
Okay.
How much do you think your total in cost is going to be for you to go to the Newport event to Kaya? So you've got, are you driving or are you going to fly?
In this case, we're driving.
Okay. So you got
extending the trip.
What is it? The gas price is what, $50 a gallon. So you got the gas price. You've got wear and tear in your car. You've got hotel. You've got entry fee. You've got food while you're there. You got a lot of costs in. So roughly, how much do you think you're gonna go in as far as cost to attend this professional event?
Yeah. Okay. So 300 entry fee. Approximately.
Driving 1,000 miles is probably another 500. Hotel, how many nights are you gonna stay? Already, I'm putting all these thoughts. Like, oh my God! This is a lot.
Right. And before this call, my husband and I just booked everything for the next tournament. So I've been doing these calculations this morning before talking to you for a tournament in Vegas. So that's another 3 nights in a hotel.
Newport is really expensive depending on where you stay. So
it is.
I'd say at least $300-400 a night. How many nights are you going to stay there?
At least 3 for the purpose of this event.
Okay, 3 on the low side. It's about 1,200 for hotels, 500 for gas, 1,700, and then 300, 2,000, and then food. That's easily your tip in 2,000. Tip. I don't want to put any more pressure on it, but that's just life, right? So 2,000. So
and then there's equipment.
Oh boy, you got a paddle. Come on, what more? What do you spend on equipment?
That's how it appears when you start playing pickleball. You have a paddle and you have your paddle, and that's done.
It's not like your strings are going to break,
right? And yet, the paddle I currently had in my hand, yesterday playing, it broke after 5 days of play.
Where did it break?
The paddle surface cracks. And when it cracks, it's reminiscent of tennis strings. And that's how players who train a lot come to think about the paddle costs. You buy a racket frame and then you restring. I mean, sometimes every 3 or 4 days, you're restringing a racket.
How long does a paddle last you then, normally?
So I should replace that paddle as soon as it breaks. So 5 to 7 days for my last paddle. And the one before it lasted a little longer.
5 to 7?
Over a month.
Oh my God.
So, and that paddle costs over $200.
So, oh my goodness.
But it has a 6-month guarantee. So then you go through the process of sending it back and having them send you a new paddle.
Wow.
Which I'm currently in with more than one paddle.
So no wonder you need a sponsor.
Truly.
Yeah, the sponsor would be sending 5 rackets and you know,
Yeah.
make an email call or whatever, and they send you another 5 and you don't worry about it.
Truly.
So that's waiting for you in the wings as soon as you decide to come out of the shadows. Right now, so we know that Newport's going to have cost. We know that Vegas is going to have cost, and I
Right.
assume that you're going to plan more trips and events, right?
Yes,
Yeah, that's
constantly.
not
I just got back from Houston. Yeah.
another. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So it sure seems like a professional circuit to me. It seems like that to me.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, because you got the
I see
equipment,
it.
you got to plan your travel.
Yeah.
You got, I'm sure you're looking at the entire year just like a pro, and you're saying these are the tournaments I'm going
Right.
to. Yeah, so you're doing all of that.
Right.
You're dedicating how much time a week to get ready for these tournaments?
To training.
Yeah.
Yesterday I trained for about 6 hours on court, and that
Oh,
doesn't include all the planning. So
it's a full-time gig.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So I'm asking all these questions because we're going to get into the tax next. All these expenses, because you're treating everything I'm hearing from you, you're treating as a pro would. I'd expect a pro to do. Are you taking any of these expenses and treating them as a business, a professional athlete would, which is as expenses
No,
for tax purposes?
not yet.
Okay.
No.
So let me give you, has Brad told you about my background?
A little bit. And you gave me a little bit of insight as well, but I can't know
Okay.
what you would tell me face to face.
Okay.
So I
So
want to know.
So here's my background. So for 27 years, I was an attorney for the IRS. So I advised agents on audits. I've had cases where someone says, I'm a pro. And I say, no, you're not.
Okay.
I'm a pro and I take all these expenses. No, you can't. And so those were some of the smaller cases I handled, medium to small to large public corporations where the IRS agents would audit them.
Okay.
And I would assist in the audits if they had a legal question. And then if the audits didn't resolve itself and there was a continuing battle and it went to court, I represented the IRS in court. So that's what I did for 27 years. And then for 2 years, I worked at Ernst & Young, and I was on the other side where I helped individuals and corporations when they needed to be defended in audits and litigation for against the IRS. And so 10 weeks ago, I left the IRS and I started a firm with a buddy of mine who also is a former IRS attorney. So it's a two-person firm. I'm based in Walnut Creek. My buddy's based in San Jose, and we have tax. We do federal tax. This is one of the issues that I wanted to address because when Brad told me about you in pickleball, I thought, okay, how good is she? And Brad said, she's here and she's going to be here in no time because she has a mental issue. She cannot let anything go unless she kicks ass at it. I said, wow.
When he and I met, I was bodybuilding, and that's the most intense disciplined prep. So those were the conditions under which we met and formed a friendship, his wife and I. So
I said, she's that good. He's like, oh my God, she's that good, and she's going to be even better. Just watch. And I thought, okay, I need to talk to Annie. So my background is in tax. And when I heard that you were going this way with pickleball, as fast as pickleball has been on the rise, I thought, I want to talk to Annie because I thought maybe Annie could, I could speak with her about learning more about pickleball, but help Annie just a little bit, learn a little bit more about taxes. So here, I'm going to try to share screen with you.
Okay.
And this is sort of, Annie, when you were in St. Mary's, did you ever take a tax accounting course?
No.
Okay, this is your tax accounting course.
Great.
If you'd like, you could send me an email. I'll give you credit so that you can put this on your transcript. Let me see if I can share. Do you see something on the screen, Annie?
Yes.
All right. I'm gonna ask you if you see. All right. Do you see this thing here?
Yes.
All right. I'm Tony. We're talking about tennis, but pickleball. Now we're gonna get into the taxes part. All right. So if you look at this, musicians, gamblers, horse breeding, golfers, tennis, or pickleball, any one of those activities, when someone goes into this activity, they may say, look, it's a hobby or it's a for-profit activity. why does that matter where something's a hobby or for-profit activity? So if it's a hobby, up above here, if it's a hobby, then all the expenses that we talked about, Annie, about you traveling, driving down to Newport and so on, they're limited. So how are they limited? So if you have all those expenses and you speak to your CPA, all those expenses have to be, if you're going to claim them, have to be on your Schedule A. They're designated as miscellaneous itemized deductions on Schedule A. And as a hobby, they're limited because they're on Schedule A. And how are they limited? Well, normally, if it's a hobby, the only way you could limit your expenses is if you have income, you net it against income, and that's it. That's all you can do. So the problem, though, is for 2018 to 2025, on the next 3 years, Congress said that even if you have hobby expenses, let's say the $2,000 you're going to expend to go to Newport, they're suspended, which means you can't even net them against income. You can't even net them against income. So every dollar that you spend, you cannot get a tax benefit. Now, flip it and let's say, oh, it's not a hobby, it's a for-profit activity. If it's designated as a for-profit activity, which is on the lower side, expenses, the $2,000, $3,000 you expend to go down to Newport is not limited, and you could take it as a deduction. So what's easiest for me to explain is if we do some numbers. So remember we talked about your tournament. So what I did was I said for cost of tournaments, Annie, you go to 5 events for the year. I'm sure it'll be more, but let's say the travel cost is 500, and you said about 500, right? For gas and so on. Hotel cost, I put it really, really low, just 200. Food cost 200, entry cost 200. So those are just the general numbers times 5 events. So I'm going to say for the year, it's a total of 5,000 in expenses. And I'm going to assume that you get $1,000 of prize money.
Okay.
So if you're a hobby, you have to report the 1,000 of income from prize money. You have to report that, and you got to pay taxes on that. What about the 5,000 of expenses? You get to deduct 0. You can't even deduct it you can't net it against the 1,000 income. All 5,000 is suspended, and you can't take a dollar of expense, which means that if you're in the 50% federal and state bracket, you have to pay $500 of tax on $1,000 of prize money, and you get 0 for expenses. Now, what if you're a for-profit activity, not a hobby? Well, you've got the same numbers. You report the 1,000 of income, not on Schedule A, but Schedule C. It's a different schedule because you're a business. You report the 5,000 of expenses that you incurred on Schedule C. First thing right off, you get to net them. Income against expense, you get to net. So do you have to pay taxes on the 1,000 prize money? And the answer is no, you don't. What about the net resulting 4,000 of expenses? You get to net them against your other income. That's a big deal because let's say you and your husband have other income. Your income's here. Your 4,000 of losses bring your other income down. So that's helpful because the things that you could not deduct up here as a hobby lowers your tax because it's a for-profit activity. Essentially, what happens if you're in a 50% bracket, really these 5,000 expenses are almost half because it's diluting your other tax liability. So you see how important it is to get your activity to be for-profit because it really funds you to do more of your professional development.
Yes.
Okay. So I think the numbers are helpful. So a little bit of the law. So there's these, if you look here, realistic expectation of profit versus honest objective to achieve a profit. So some people think, do you have to have a realistic expectation of profit? So let's say I decide, and I'm a terrible tennis player, and I don't know the difference between a racket or a paddle. And let's say I'm terrible, and I decide I'm going to turn pro in pickleball. What is my realistic expectation of profiting if I enter, a PPA event? 0. I mean, I'm a dreamer, right? Do I have to have a realistic expectation of profiting from being a professional pickleballer? And the answer for tax purposes is no. It doesn't have to be realistic.
Wow.
It just has to be honest. Are you honestly trying to be a pro? Not, Tony, are you crazy? You're in la la land. No, I just have to be making an honest, objective effort to be a pro. So I
hit that bell. Woo.
So here, can you be, for tax purposes,
trying.
can you be a dreamer under tax law to be allowed to escape the limitations of a hobby category? Can you be a dreamer? And the answer is yes, because you don't have to have a realistic expectation. You just have to have an honest, objective effort to make a profit. So for tax law purposes, how do you establish that it's an honest, objective effort to be a for-profit professional pickleballer? Well, there are 9 factors, whether it's a horse breeder, a golfer, a tennis player, or a pickleballer. There are 9 factors that tax looks to. Here are the 9, 1 through 9. And remember before we talked about when you were working at Robert Half, the grid?
Mm-hmm.
It's a scorecard.
Mm-hmm.
And so of these 9, at the bottom, we have a scorecard, which athletes like you absolutely key in on.
Yes.
So of these 9 factors, the scorecard is, of the 9, favorable, neutral, unfavorable. That's it. It's a little bit hidden here, but of the 9, we've got to put slot. Is factor 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 9, is it on the favorable side, neutral side, or unfavorable side? And so let's say you have 5 favorable and 2 unfavorable, and the rest neutral. Do you win? And the test is not necessarily, because right here, it's what's called a facts and circumstances test. And you don't have to have a majority of the factors to win or lose. You just have to look at the factors and make sure you meet as many factors as you can. But even if you have 3 or 4, you could possibly still win. They're looking holistically at all of the factors together. So let me give you an example. Factor 1, the manner in which the taxpayer carried on the activity. So what does the IRS and what do courts look for? Well, Annie, do you have a business plan? Do you have you have a schedule where you're going to go through some events, right? But do you have a business plan, like in a year or 6 months, you're going to go into pro level? You're going to start getting sponsors and you're going to look to X and Y. Do you have a plan? So you would need to have a written plan.
Okay.
Do you have a separate business account for your business? So wouldn't a real business have a separate business account and not put everything in your personal account?
Okay.
Yeah. So do you have a business account? Do you have business record? Do you keep them separately? Do you try to develop sales? For you, it's not sales, it's sponsorship. Are you reaching out to sponsors? Are you trying to get some other things to supplement you as a professional? Because you would expect.
I'm a teaching professional. I wonder if
that's another aspect. Do you need to get a required license or permit to be a pro? And if things are sort of going a little bit sideways, would you change your approach to try to be more profitable? And that could be getting a trainer. That could be going to different tournaments.
Okay.
So all these things, and this is just factor 1. So if we look at factor 3, time and effort expended by the taxpayer in carrying on the activity. Remember a little while ago, I said, hey, Annie, how much time are you spending? Right. And you said 6 hours just yesterday. Look right here. If someone's devoting 10 hours a week, it's hard for them to win this factor 3. Is it 10 hours a week? Come on, a pro wouldn't spend 10 hours a week.
No.
But Annie spends 6 hours in just one day. So for you, if I were looking at it from the IRS perspective, and you just told me, well, I spent 6 hours just yesterday training, I'd say where are you in factor 3? You're in the favorable category. Right? And that's just one factor. So we're looking at each factor to figure out, is it positive or negative? And then at the end, if you have more favorable than unfavorable, you're probably going to tilt towards for-profit, honest, objective, for-profit activity versus hobby, which is great for you and your husband. So I'm going to give you one example. There's a case that went to court, Cernette v. Commissioner. That was 2012. And it was a telecom salesperson. He was full-time, but he was also in the sprint car racing circuit. He decided, I'm a full-time telecom salesperson, but I'm going to go into sprint car racing. So the question for him was, is it a for-profit activity or hobby? And so let's look. After all the factors were analyzed, the favorable factors were, he had the expertise. And I'd say, Annie, you have expertise. He put a lot of time into the effort like you do right now. So 2 favorable factors, but there were 4 unfavorable factors. He enjoyed, going backwards, he enjoyed sprint car racing a lot. he had a lot of extra money from different sources, and that was his money that he earned as a full-time telecom person. He couldn't really point to any occasional profits. All he had were expenses, but he couldn't point to occasional profits. And he really didn't have a history of income and losses from the activity. So he had these unfavorable to these favorable. And then here were the neutral. And I think this is important. Remember factor one, which was, did he have a bank account? Did he have a business plan? Well, he had a little bit of positive, a little bit of negative. So what the court did was, and the IRS did, was they put this as neutral. And had it maybe slid from neutral to favorable, he may have won. But you see how it's not necessarily whether you have more or less of favorable versus unfavorable. It's just getting as many factors in this box as possible. Remember, it's not whether it's realistic, it's whether it's honest. And how do we determine honest? These factors. We got to slot them into our scorecard has to be here.
Okay.
So here's the final piece. This is where you get tested, Annie. You ready for your test?
Yeah.
All right. So question one, must you have a realistic chance of making money as a professional pickleball player to be categorized as a for-profit enterprise and not a hobby?
No.
No. You're not required to be a realistic pickleball player saying, oh, realistically, I'm going to be awesome. I'll be making $50,000 every tournament. No, all you have to do is meet the majority, not the majority, but hopefully the majority factors, but most of the factors when you analyze it, tilt your way. So question two, out of the 9-factor test to determine whether your pickleball activity is a hobby or a for-profit activity, do you have to establish that you satisfy the majority of these factors, at least 5 of 9?
It seems to me that it's favorable if you do,
but is it required?
Have to.
Yeah, you don't have to.
Right.
And the answer is no. It would help, just as you noted, it would help,
right.
But you don't have to. And so there are a number of factors that you really have to focus on, which I think the main one is number one, which is you got to make sure you treat it like a business.
Treat it.
Okay. Yeah. So for you, it would be one, making sure that you have a business plan, which includes your schedule of events. And then you have a separate business account, bank account, and you have a separate file. And so treat it just as if it were a business. So here's the last one for you.
I'm a certified pro.
Yeah.
Pro.
Yeah.
That shows how serious I am.
Absolutely.
Become employed by a country club.
So the last question.
A schedule of competing. Okay.
That's right. What is more fun, playing pickleball or talking about tax?
It's not a trick question. You're already smiling no matter what I say. Yes, playing pickleball.
Wrong answer, Annie. Come on. Wrong answer. So hopefully, so let me give you, we're just about to wrap up here, but let me give you this. So based on everything you're telling me is I would look at those factors and say, you're a pro, Annie, whether you like it or not. And I know you want to be on the cusp and in the shadows. When I talk to you and I ask you these questions, like, what are you doing? How much are you training? You're looking at your schedule. You're a pro. But what would I ask you to do as your tax advisor? I'd say, well, Annie, write down your plan. You're looking at your calendar and you're saying, this is what I'm going to do. All right, write it down. Yeah. So say you're going to do this and your objective is to do this. Also that you're going to, at a certain point when you win like a first event or really place high, you're going to start approaching sponsors. And then when you do, log the sponsors that you've approached, not necessarily that you got them, but you approach them, because a business would figure out all alternative ways to fund, not just the prize money. So you look at Federer or Tiger Woods, don't they make more money in endorsements than they do in prize money? That's what a pro would do. So if you went and started trying to get endorsements and sponsors, that's what a pro would do. So get a separate checking account, bank account, write down your plan, go get sponsors and endorsers, and put it all down on paper.
I'm going to do all those things right away.
Your record of workouts, log them. Log them.
Oh, wow.
So you have all that substantiation. So
Yeah.
what I'm going to do after we end the call, I'm going to send you my slides that list the 9 factors. So you can start ticking them off. And then this is just another scorecard for you to meet.
Beautiful.
Because you meet the scorecard, then you are not a hobby, you are for-profit activity.
Mhm.
And that helps you because the expenses that you have to go to these events, Vegas and Newport, they are reduced because you have a tax benefit because you are trying to expend money to become profitable.
Mhm.
So do you have a realistic possibility of making a profit? And the answer is, it doesn't matter. All you have to do is have an honest objective
Mhm.
to make a profit based on
And I
these.
do have an honest objective.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. That means that you really have to use the tax law to make sure that you fund your career aspirations.
I do.
Yeah. So do you and your husband have a CPA that you use?
No.
Okay. So what, you do your own taxes? Okay. So here's what I want you to do. First thing is go through first focus on your tournament, but
Yeah, absolutely.
so once you go through the PowerPoint and you have any questions,
Mhm.
you have my number, contact me
Okay.
and say, Tony, I've done this. This is what else can I do?
Okay.
And then we're going to remember, well, sort of, but I said, if your hobby, you put the expenses on Schedule A and it just sits there and rots.
Mhm.
But once you become a for-profit activity, it moves to Schedule C
Mhm.
and they become deductible.
Beautiful.
And that is really helpful because that allows you to pursue your dream
Absolutely.
and your career in pickleball.
Yeah.
And then you're going to kick ass. Yeah, you're going to kick ass. So, but I think taxes, knowing this allows you a little bit more steam,
Mhm.
wind behind your sails, because you know that when you expend 3,000, well, I'm going to have fun and I'm going to do great, but you also get a tax deduction.
Yeah. And honestly, I think it will elevate my performance. The more organized I feel about all the elements of what I'm doing, the more I can perform because I feel clarity and like a cleanliness of mind while I'm training.
Yeah, everything's organized.
Yes.
So I presented one more scorecard for you to consider.
Beautiful. Oh, this is helpful.
All right. Well, Annie, look, I'm looking at the clock and it's 9:54 and I promised that it would be 20 minutes. And guess what? It far exceeded 20 minutes. I'm sorry about that. I'm so sorry.
I've enjoyed our time.
So after this, I'm sending you the PowerPoint and you have my contact information. So hopefully at some point when you get back from Newport, I want to hear all about it.
Great.
I want you and me and Brad to get together. I want to hear about your results, how it worked out for you.
I like it.
I hope at some point to be able to see you actually play.
Oh, that'd be great too. Yeah.
That
I
is
love it.
fantastic meeting you. Hey, good luck in the tournament.
Thank you.
Thank you so much
for this time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Have a good one.
All right.
Bye.
See you, Annie.
Bye.